Hello! Today I'm going to be showing you my process of making a batch of my round frogs, which are going to be available in my shop for $7 each. I'll put that link in the description below. They're in my Ko-Fi shop, or Ko-Fi, however you want to pronounce that. First, I'm actually unstitching because I accidentally sewed the belly on wrong. Always make sure when you're sewing that the wrong sides are on the outside and then the right sides are on the inside, touching each other. Otherwise, you'll end up like me with an extra half hour of work. Also, this isn't really a full sewing tutorial. Obviously, I make mistakes still, so I don't see myself as qualified just yet to give a full how to sew lesson. So going into this, you should know the basics of sewing. Really, this is just my personal process of making these put into the form of content. Now that that's done, let's get into the actual video. The first thing you're going to do is get your pattern, print it out on firm paper such as cardstock, and cut it out on the lines. Most patterns aren't done like this, but this is the way that I did it because this is the way that made most sense to me as a beginner sewer. You're going to lay your fabric nice and flat, preferably not on the floor like a maniac, and then grab a pen and trace your shape. After you trace your shapes, cut them out however you like. I prefer to use scissors that are sharper than my wit to cut out big blobs, and then once the big blob is free from the rest of the fabric, I cut more precisely, making sure to leave about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick border around my pen. Once you're done cutting out the tummies, you're going to trace and cut out the top pieces. A left piece and a right piece. Not 2 lefts or 2 rights, unless you're making 2 or more frogs. Then that's a different story. This process is exactly the same as doing the stomachs. Once all your pieces are cut out, it's finally time to get sewing. There's only 3 lines that you have to sew. The first one is going to be from the nose to the butt. I still haven't found the sweet spot of exactly where to start and stop sewing. I just kind of have a rough idea. But this way, every frog is unique, so it's probably fine. The next line you sew is a little hard to get right, but basically you have to place the top piece on top of the bottom piece, line it up just right, and fold over 1/2 so that you're sewing on the left side of the frog. And then you just sew from the butt to the nose as best as you can. final line you sew is done the same way as the last line, except you're sewing from the nose to the leg and leaving that last booty cheek open so you can turn it inside out and stuff it and everything. And there you have it, your almost finished frog skeleton, skin, peel, crest, whatever you want to call it. It's the outermost part of your frog. So the next step is going to be getting out all of your other supplies. The scissors, the eyes, the quinoa, or whatever you want to use for stuffing, your funnel, your tablespoon measurement, your needle and thread, everything. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is clip the edges. This is a process that is kind of scary, and the first time that I did it, I was definitely freaking out a lot more than I should have. But basically all you're going to do is get some nice, really sharp scissors and cut as close to your sewed line as you can, as close as possible. You're not going to cut the actual thread, otherwise you'll have other problems. You just want to cut as close as possible to the thread. After that, you're ready to turn it inside out. And you just do that using that little hole that you left in the booty cheek for you to just turn everything inside out. Or I guess right side out? Yeah, right side out. Right side's out. All your right side should be on the outside. Here you can see I am taking a pen and just kind of pushing out all of the little legs and stuff. The legs don't really have stuffing in them because of the fleece that I use. It's nice and thick, and so they're already kind of puffy. So I just used the pen to kind of poke out all of the little legs. Now it's starting to look a lot more like the finished frogs. Next is the eyes. You're gonna want to pick out, I prefer to use 10mm safety eyes. I feel like they are the best size, but obviously you can go as small as you want or as big as you want. You can use felt, you can crochet some eyes, you could use googly eyes and just glue them in place. But I prefer to use safety eyes, and I just kind of put them where I want them to be, kind of eyeball where I want them to be on the frog, and then I just hold it there with 2 fingers, push it out the little hole that we still have saved, and then use a unstitcher to kind of tug at the threads back there until I've created just a teeny tiny little hole. You just got to break like 1 or 2 strands of the fabric until you make a little hole big enough to shove the rest of the safety eye through, and then you use the backing to secure the eye in place. Sometimes you'll need to give a little bit of a tug on the fabric around the eye just to kind of get it looking nice and smooth, but that's pretty much all there is to the eyes. They're definitely my favorite part to put in because it really just makes the item come to life. Once you're done with the eyes, you're going to take your funnel and your spoon, and you're going to start spooning in the quinoa through the butt. Try not to think about it too much. And I do about somewhere between 7 and 8 tablespoons of quinoa inside of my frogs, but really you can put however much you feel is right. I like to have them be enough to make them feel nice and evenly weighted, but not too much that it's like completely full with quinoa, because I definitely don't want it to be completely full. I want it to be able to have a little bit of posability in there. Not that they have much limbs to pose, but so that they can sit down and things. Once you're done filling all of them up with quinoa, you're going to take your needle and a thread and start sewing the hole closed. This is the very last step, almost done, home stretch. The stitch I'm doing here is just a ladder stitch. I really wish I could have gotten a better camera angle of me doing this, but it was just kind of impossible. But you pretty much just sew parallel lines along each side of the hole, and then you tie a little knot at the end. I usually like to tie a knot at the beginning and at the end, and then you just weave the needle through the body of the frog and cut off the thread. And there you have it, a finished frog. He is so round, he is so lovely and wonderful and delightful, and the perfect companion for you, your friend, your enemy. Hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I'll catch you in the next one.